relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because...
To say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all.
They used to call him the king of hip-hop hustle, a mogul, a legend, a one-man empire. But yesterday, that whole empire started crumbling in real time as Cassie Ventura took the stand and laid it all bare in court. The moment she started talking, the vibe in the courtroom shifted. And Diddy? Man went pale like he saw a ghost.
Walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak off, the freak off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
What Cassie described was so intense, even veteran reporters couldn't believe what they were hearing. The guy who once ran the game with swagger, running bad boy like it was the White House of hip-hop, suddenly looked powerless. Cassie wasn't holding back. She told it all. Allegations so raw, so detailed, that it shook the room to its core. For years, Diddy walked through the industry like royalty, untouchable. He built bad boy records from scratch, turned rappers into icons, and dipped his hands into everything from fashion to vodka to TV.
Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort, and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony. Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table.
On paper, it looked like he cracked the code. The flashy suits, the mogul moves, the smooth talk. He was the blueprint. But now, that golden image is being torn apart piece by piece. 'Cause if what Cassie's saying is even half true, then while the world was watching Diddy's red carpet glow up, she was stuck behind closed doors in what sounds like a nightmare. The disconnect between the public image and her private truth had jaws dropping all over that courtroom.
Loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it." And she said, "Oh no, well, it's not that." But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
And just like that, the man who branded himself as a visionary might be getting remembered for something way darker. Here's a man who's always looked like the definition of control. Sharp suits, clean cut, smooth with the words, always playing the role of the polished mogul. But what's coming out in court? It's a whole different story. The allegations make him sound like someone fans wouldn't even recognize. Like the mask we've seen all these years was just that, a mask.
Actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, "I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him."
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs.
On day 2, Diddy pulled up like it was business as usual. Reporters clocked every detail. He showed up in full billionaire mode, flanked by a squad of elite lawyers, nodding like a boss, throwing polite smiles across the courtroom. From the outside, you'd think he was walking into a board meeting, not about to face some of the most serious accusations of his life. But that cool act didn't last long. Once Cassie started talking, everything shifted. Witnesses said it was like watching a different man unravel. The confidence? Gone. The swagger? Vanished. Suddenly, that perfect poker face started cracking, and fast.
She's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was. Someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now, but I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on...
As Cassie detailed what allegedly happened between them, Diddy's legal team kept jumping in with objections, cutting her off like they were trying to plug a leaking dam. And the craziest part? This was the same man who once moved like a puppet master in the music world, calling shots, making stars, sealing multi-million-dollar deals. But in that courtroom, he couldn't even control his own body language. People said he looked agitated, fidgeting nonstop like he wanted to escape the room. The power. It wasn't in his hands anymore. Cassie had flipped the whole script. When Cassie finally hit the stand, all eyes locked in. but not on her. All eyes were on Diddy.
Of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that.
Witnesses said the man looked like the life had been sucked out of him. His face went pale, straight ghost mode. He started messing with his tie, then his cuffs, then just nervously twitching his fingers. It wasn't just nerves, it was full-blown panic. And then came the scribbling. Diddy started writing note after note, passing them down the line to his lawyers like he was trying to fight off a tidal wave with Post-its. One of his attorneys even had to throw up a hand to slow him down. That's how frantic it got. A reporter in the room said it looked like watching a man realize, for the first time, that he no longer controlled the storyline. Another witness swore he looked physically sick as Cassie calmly broke it all down. And get this.
As it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she...
One person noticed Diddy closing his eyes over and over again, like he couldn't even look her way or handle hearing what she had to say. And this was just the warm-up. Because as Cassie kept speaking through the afternoon, the courtroom was about to get hit with something big. The kind of allegation that doesn't just shake a room, it rattles an industry. Something so explosive, it threatened to tear down everything Diddy spent decades building. The man known for crafting hits and controlling headlines, he was now sitting front row to a story he couldn't remix, rewrite, or bury. When Cassie opened her mouth, that courtroom went dead silent. Everybody knew it was gonna be wild, but no one, not even his army of lawyers, was ready for the bomb she was about to drop.
Combs' federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel.
After years of silence, years of holding in stories that could ruin reputations, Cassie finally had her moment. And trust, she used it. She didn't come in yelling or making a scene. Nope. She started slow, and that made it hit even harder. She calmly shared how she met Diddy at just 19 years old. She was barely an adult, chasing dreams of a music career. He was already a powerhouse, loaded, connected, untouchable. From the jump, the power imbalance was massive. And according to Cassie, Diddy didn't just notice it. He used it. Her story unfolded like a thriller, slow, steady and chilling. First, it was the little things, the check-ins. She said he had to know where she was at all times. If she was out with friends, he'd allegedly pop up unannounced, like he was watching. Then the music career became part of the control. Cassie claimed he'd threatened to shelf her songs if she didn't do what he wanted. That if another artist got too close or too promising, he'd find a way to block it. She painted a picture of a man who didn't just manage her, he monitored her. And then came the tech bombshell. According to court transcripts, Cassie testified that Diddy allegedly installed tracking software on her phone. She said he would call her just minutes after she arrived somewhere, already knowing her location. It wasn't just control anymore. It was surveillance. And to make it worse, she claimed he slowly cut off the people around her, isolating her from the few friends who might have noticed something was wrong. One by one, Cassie said, her circle disappeared. Not by accident, but by design. She claimed Diddy chipped away at her support system until he was all she had left. And when she started talking about this part in court, the room got tense. The judge had to shut things down 3 times just to keep order. Diddy was losing it, shaking his head, whispering loud enough for people to hear, pulling faces that the jury definitely caught. Every time the judge snapped at him to chill, he'd fake calm for a few minutes, then right back to squirming. It was like watching a man who's always been in control suddenly realize that control's gone. And then, Cassie dropped the bomb. She pulled out her phone and passed it to her attorney like it was nothing. But what was inside? It changed everything. They threw the messages and emails up on a big screen for everyone to see. Diddy's face? Straight up stunned. He clearly didn't know she'd kept receipts, but she did. Texts where he allegedly apologized for getting violent. Emails where he reportedly threatened her career if she ever spoke up. And those messages? They completely clashed with what his PR team had been feeding the public for years. And that was just the beginning. Cassie kept going. And it got darker. She testified about physical abuse, saying he threw her against walls during fights. Then came the one that shook the room. She claimed he once pushed her down a flight of stairs at a rental spot in Miami. The courtroom? Dead silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was that real. The most chilling part? Cassie testified that on multiple occasions, Diddy allegedly choked her until she nearly blacked out, only stopping when her body went limp. That detail alone had jurors reacting hard. One older woman on the jury was seen wiping away tears. A male juror couldn't even look in Diddy's direction. The room shifted. Everyone felt it. Even the reporters, the ones who've covered everything, said they weren't ready for how graphic and raw Cassie's story got. And believe it or not, that wasn't even the worst of it. It was all building up to that moment, the one that blew the whole courtroom wide open. "I thought I was going to die that night," Cassie said, voice barely above a whisper. You could have heard a pin drop. The entire courtroom leaned in. This wasn't some recycled tabloid rumor. This was something new, something no one had heard. Not the blogs, not the fans, not even industry insiders. It was about an incident at the Four Seasons Hotel, a story Cassie had kept buried for years. She told the court she stayed silent out of pure fear. Fear for her career. Fear for her life. Fear that nobody would believe her over someone as famous and powerful as Diddy. But now, she was done protecting anyone. She said it started like a typical industry afterparty. But everything flipped when Diddy allegedly spotted her chatting with another music executive. That's when the smile vanished. She claimed he gripped her arm so tight it left bruises, all while whispering threats in her ear like nothing was wrong, keeping that cool public image in front of the crowd. And that wasn't even the most shocking part. Cassie told the court that Diddy straight up dragged her through the hotel lobby, in front of everyone. She said she was crying, pulling away, causing enough of a scene that hotel security actually stepped in. But the second the guard realized it was Diddy, he backed off. Didn't ask questions, didn't check on her, just hit him with a quick, "Everything okay?" And when Diddy said yes, that was it. Gone. "He didn't even ask me if I was okay," Cassie told the court. You could feel the weight of that sentence. Then came the evidence that shook the entire courtroom. The photos. Cassie's lawyer put up a set of pictures she took of herself the morning after that hotel incident. Bruises on her arms, a busted lip, red marks around her neck. These weren't staged or polished. These were raw, blurry, taken in a bathroom mirror. The kind of photos you take when you don't know who else will believe you. And maybe that's what made them hit even harder. They felt real. Cassie told the court she took them because she thought nobody would believe her without proof. Diddy's legal team went into panic mode, doing everything to keep those photos out. They argued the usual, not authenticated, could have been anything, wrong timing in the case. But the judge shut all that down. Every single objection denied. And once those photos hit the screens, the jury couldn't hide their reactions. One woman literally covered her mouth. 2 male jurors turned away, couldn't even look. And one in the back row? She was writing so fast her hand started shaking. The truth wasn't just being told anymore. It was being shown. This hotel incident? It hit the courtroom like a grenade. No warning, no leaks, no whispers. Not a single soul saw it coming. It wasn't in any earlier filings or statements, which meant Diddy's legal team had nothing ready. Zero defense. The moment Cassie dropped the details, you could see the panic hit his lawyers like a wave, faces frozen, flipping through papers like it'd help. She told the court Diddy allegedly threw a champagne bottle at her head, missed by inches, shattered it against the wall. Then, she said, he wrecked the entire hotel room in a violent rage, broke a lamp, flipped a whole table, even punched through a bathroom door. But the worst part? Cassie testified that he held her there for 2 days. Took her phone, locked her in, and told her flat out, "Don't even think about calling for help." And as this part of her story wrapped up, all eyes turned to Diddy. Everyone in that room knew what they were witnessing. This was the moment. The one that could define not just this trial, but his whole legacy. The man who built a billion-dollar empire off staying calm, smooth, and untouchable. He cracked, and then he crumbled, right in front of everyone. That calm exterior, the always composed mogul act, gone. It wasn't just a slip, it was a breakdown. For decades, Diddy had mastered the art of control, the business smile, the interview charm, the never let him see you sweat vibe. But in that moment, all of it shattered. And what people saw underneath? It wasn't the brand. It was the man. And it wasn't pretty. As Cassie's testimony hit its most damning points, the mask Diddy had worn for decades started slipping. Fast. Court reporters, the ones who've seen every high-profile meltdown you can think of, said they'd never witnessed anything like this. Diddy didn't just lose composure, he transformed right there in front of them. The powerful mogul who strutted in that morning? Gone. What was left looked cornered, shaken, and desperate. With every new allegation Cassie laid out, Diddy looked smaller, like he was sinking into his seat. His lawyers were working overtime just to hold the situation together. Someone sitting right behind the legal team said Diddy's main attorney kept touching his arm, trying to ground him. At one point, a note got passed his way with "Stay calm" in all caps. But it didn't work. Not even close. Things spiraled hard. When Cassie started talking about an alleged incident at his house in the Hamptons, Diddy lost it. He slammed his hand down on the table, so hard it echoed through the courtroom. The judge wasn't having it. "Mr. Combs, if you can't control yourself, I will have you removed," he warned. And for a second, it looked like they really might toss him out of his own trial. Even as Cassie kept speaking, Diddy couldn't hide it. Shaking his head, mouthing, "That's not true," every time she dropped something explosive. But here's the thing. He wasn't backstage anymore. There was a jury right there, watching everything. And Diddy? He was giving them a front row seat to a meltdown that no PR team could spin. One person in the courtroom said it looked like watching a man who'd never been challenged finally realize he's not in control anymore. For years, Diddy allegedly controlled everything in Cassie's life. But now, the power had shifted. And the one with the mic, the spotlight, and the truth was her. He couldn't mute her, couldn't send security, couldn't drop a press release to clean it up. All he could do was sit there and listen. And that was eating him alive. But the moment everything truly snapped, the breaking point, came when Cassie testified that Diddy had threatened her family if she ever told the truth. Then she dropped a bomb nobody was ready for. She had recordings, real audio. Cassie's lawyer played them out loud for the whole courtroom. And that's when Diddy snapped. He shot up out of his chair and yelled across the room at Cassie, "You know that's not how it happened!" The whole courtroom froze. His lawyers had to physically hold him back. It took 3 of them to wrestle him into his seat as he kept trying to yell over the audio blaring through the speakers. The judge had enough. Recess was called on the spot. But the damage? Already done. Everyone had seen it with their own eyes. The jury, the press, the court staff. The man who built a whole legacy off being untouchable just showed the world how rattled, shaken, and completely touchable he really is. As they escorted Diddy out for the recess, he didn't even look like the same man who strutted into court that morning. That cool, confident mogul vibe, gone. The mask had slipped, and what was underneath? It wasn't pretty, but just when everyone thought the worst was behind them, Cassie dropped another bomb. One nobody saw coming. Not the jury, not the judge, and definitely not Diddy. Turns out, Cassie hadn't just survived, she'd planned. For years, she'd quietly been collecting evidence, real receipts, texts, emails, photos, and she didn't keep them in just one place. She made sure they were stored in multiple spots where Diddy couldn't touch them, couldn't erase them, couldn't rewrite the narrative. Then came the line that froze the room. Cassie told the court she had text messages from other celebrities, big names, who had personally witnessed Diddy's behavior. And these weren't just extras at some party. These were people close to him, friends, business partners, folks who had been part of his inner circle for years. According to the transcripts, some of them had seen things go down backstage at events and inside private parties, stuff the public never had a clue about. The moment she said it, Diddy's face reportedly turned white. A courtroom observer said he looked like he was about to be sick. His legal team exploded, jumping up, shouting objections, scrambling for a sidebar with the judge. They tried everything to block the messages, called them hearsay, claimed they weren't submitted during discovery. But it didn't matter. The damage was already in the air. The courtroom knew Diddy wasn't just battling Cassie's words anymore. He was up against years of receipts and people who'd seen too much. The judge wasn't buying what Diddy's legal team was selling. After reviewing the celebrity messages behind closed doors, he came back into the courtroom and shut it all down. Objections overruled. He called the messages highly relevant and officially entered them into evidence. The second that ruling dropped, Diddy put his head in his hands. He knew what was coming. Then the screens lit up, and the courtroom got hit with name after name. Big names. First, a major rapper had texted Cassie after a Grammy after-party. "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right? You can stay at my place if you need to." You could hear the whispers in the courtroom. Next came a message from a female pop star. "I've known him for 15 years, and I've never seen him act like that with anyone else. This isn't normal. Please call me." And it only got worse. A legendary producer, someone who's worked with Diddy for decades, had messaged Cassie after witnessing something at the studio. I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe. These weren't just messages. They were receipts from people inside the industry. People who saw things. People who said something. And they blew a hole through Diddy's public claims. The whole "no one saw anything" narrative. Gone. Then came the final gut punch. Diddy's own messages. Screenshots showed him texting Cassie, "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again." And just like that, the courtroom saw it all. The witnesses, the apologies, the truth he couldn't delete. Read whatever you need to make this right. Just name it. New car, new apartment, whatever you want. That's what one of the messages said. Then came another. "My lawyer can draw up the paperwork tomorrow. 2 million. Clean break. You don't talk about anything from the past 5 years." Yeah, straight up hush money. As those messages were read out loud in court, something wild happened. People who had shown up with Diddy, part of his entourage, the ones sitting proudly behind him all morning, started quietly leaving. One by one, they slipped out, heads down, unable to keep sitting there as the walls closed in. By the time that part of the testimony wrapped, Diddy wasn't surrounded by support anymore. He was sitting there, almost alone, just him and his legal team. That army he walked in with? Gone. The courtroom had just witnessed something major. The so-called king of hip-hop didn't just get hit with allegations. He got hit with evidence no one saw coming, and it changed everything. As day 2 came to a close, the man who entered court as an untouchable mogul walked out looking wrecked. All the money in the world, all the security around him, none of it could shield him from what just happened inside that courtroom. Cassie Ventura didn't just testify, she flipped the script. She didn't just speak her truth, she exposed his. The texts, the photos, the audio, the receipts. They painted a picture that no one can unsee. At this point, the question isn't, can Diddy win the case? The real question is, can his reputation survive it? If you've been watching this unfold, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear everything. Like, subscribe, and share if you're locked into this story. And trust me, the next video, it gets even messier. See you there.